About one of my favorite Mishnayot appears, and it's one that Malki's heard me mention before, so she'll have to, bear with it. Okay. But the Mishnah goes: Arba midot biyoshvim lefnei chachamim, sfog umashpech mashmeret v'nafar. Sfog shu sofeg et hakol, umashpech shemachnis bezo umotzi bezo, mishameret shemotziat hayayin v'koletet et hashmarim, v'nafar shemotziat hakemach v'koletet et hasolet. So we have four different types of attributes of people who study who study with Chachamim. And it's interesting. It says Yoshvim lefnei Chachamim, and it's from that phrase Yoshvim lefnei Chachamim that we get the word yeshiva. Okay, the whole concept of calling a place where we sit and learn a yeshiva comes from this. When we came in Aliyah and Moshe was going for job interviews, he had a number of meetings that he had to go to, and I remember he'd go to a meeting and he'd have a certain name somebody had to meet with, and they'd say to him, "Oh, who yeshiva," and he'd have to wait, etc. And then he'd go to another one, "Oh, who yeshiva." And
couldn't understand what they were learning. They were learning.
Out of time from their busy days to sit and learn.
That's nice.
I discovered that it means he's in a meeting.
And you don't want to know what they do at all those meetings.
So we have four types of learners, basically. And I guess as an educator, this has always spoken to me. We have the sponge, we have the funnel, we have the sieve, and we have what I would call today the colander. Okay? So the sponge soaks up everything. No matter what's being said, remembers everything, or records everything. The mashpech, the funnel, I have kids like that, where everything went in one ear and out the other ear. There is nothing retained whatsoever. Okay, it comes up in school. What'd you learn today? I don't know. What subjects did you have today? I don't know. That's pretty much the mashpech that does pretty well there. Then we have the mishameret. The mishameret was used for wine, but it's really any kind of sieve where if you think about how we use flour today, if you're sifting flour, what's saved inside? It's just the garbage, okay? What you're throwing away. What's good falls through, okay? That's the mishameret. And then the nafah is the opposite. It's like the colander of today, where if you're going to, if you're draining something in a colander, what's saved inside the colander is what's important, and what falls away is the garbage. So the sponge would, when we think about school and what some of us were like in school, the sponge would be the kid who wrote down every single word the teacher said, including the jokes, including the names of the kids' and their ages, etc.
Shani will tell you about writing down everything the teacher said.
Okay. That's one. That's the spog. Okay, or retains it all in their heads. Then there's the mashpech, the one who the notebook is empty, and so is the head. Okay, that was most of my life in Soloveitchik. I have to say, I had a great time. I had wonderful friends. I did a lot of things. Learned zero. Then we have the mishameret. The mishameret is the kid who can tell you the teacher's 8 kids' names in order, okay, and does know the joke, but has no idea what the context of the joke was or what they were learning today. So he remembers, but not the right thing. If you open up his notebook, he probably has great doodles in it and probably a list of names of the teacher's kids, but not much more. And then finally, you have that ideal student that is an educator one always wants, and that, of course, is the nafah, the one who can separate the good from the chaff, and save what's important and take down what's important and remove the rest, and just not waste brain space on the garbage, but really retain the important. And I suspect, I used to, when I taught this, I would ask my students to identify themselves. But what I've learned is that in life, we are more than one of these people, okay? Some of it is age, some of it is just interest, some of it is that certain teachers sparked our interest and suddenly we decided to learn, and we're excited about learning. So I don't think that we are ever typecast for life as this. But Malki knows that this is the reason that I tell this story always is because of Malki, because when I once had an exam, a Navi exam. I think it was probably in high school. It might have even been in TI. I'm not sure. It wasn't in Soloveitchik, but I had a Navi exam. And typically for me, okay, I had not done anything all semester and certainly hadn't learned anything and didn't have a notebook to study with as well.
I thought you were a good student all the time.
So not. Malki, on the other hand, I had potential. I was the kid with potential. For 8 years, I was the kid with potential.
I copied off your test. That's why I failed.
Okay.
I used to sit next to you, look over your shoulder to copy.
That's why you failed. I got potential. So the day before before the exam, Malki, of course, is finished studying because you never study the night before the exam, okay? And so I mentioned to Malki that I didn't have any notes, so Malki offered me her notebook, so I borrowed her notebook to study for the exam. And I go home, and around midnight, it was about time that I would open up the Navi and start studying because the exam was the next day. And I open up the Navi, and I open up Malki's notebook, and to my horror, I see Perek Aleph, and there are about 3 words. And then I see Perek Bet, and there are about 5 words. And Perek Gimel, about 2. And this is how the notebook goes.
So you knew everything else.
Needless to say, I failed. Okay, I mean, it's quite clear that that notebook did not get me the pass, and at 12 o'clock I wasn't passing the exam. But more importantly, I came to Malki the next day, and I said to her, Malki, what did you do? She said, well, I only write down what I don't know. From this, one learns never ever borrow a notebook from the Nafes, okay? Never, okay? You borrow the notebooks from the Svog, okay? And you can, you can have teachers who are the Nafes, but you don't want to ever borrow their notebooks. Anyway, I think that the lesson I learned for life here is that all of us are different kinds of people at different stages, and for us here, sitting here, 50 years later, it's just so much fun for us to be able to see who we've become over the last 50 years. And we have recollections back to who we were perhaps in 8th grade or earlier, but it's also fun to see what's happened with each of us since then, and I thank all of you.
50 years from now, we're coming again here.
Yeah.
50 years, we're coming again.
Anyway, just so you know, I never heard that mission before.
Oh.
Or if I did, I don't remember. Just to show you that.
Write it down.
We definitely.
What is write it down? That's
because who gets the
Parakeh
Parakeh?
all the numbers,
Who gets the
okay?
Parakeh?
Parakeh is all the numbers, it has the Asara.
Asara.
It's a great parak. If anyone ever wants to quiz kids about general knowledge of Judaism, Michallah used to do this for their entrance exam. They would come into a room and they would put a number on the board, and then you had to write down everything you could think of that had to do with that number in terms of Tanakh or Judaism, etc. And it's amazing how many numbers you could do that with and have a good time. Okay,
Nothing's changed.
so Parakeh in Pirkei Avot does that with with 4s, with 7s, with 10s. It's an interesting parak.
Thank you.
How many times is 127 found in the Tanakh?
Is that Sarah? Wasn't Sarah?
It's Sarah's age.
Sarah's age.
And it's the Midjanot.
And the Midjanot.
That's right. Oh,